Hello, listeners. This is James Carter, joined by Susan John here on The Last Signal Radio. Susan, it began like any ordinary morning, but the sky betrayed the world. Across every major city, reality itself seemed to tear open. A rift of darkness splitting the horizon, crackling with unnatural energy. The air was thick with a metallic scent. And then they came. Towering interdimensional demons, creatures that defied earthly biology. Their forms were impossible to comprehend. Long, segmented limbs, glowing eyes, and gaping maws that seemed to consume light itself. Humanity's first resistance was instinctive, but futile.
James, the initial impact was catastrophic. In New York, London, Shanghai, and countless other cities, the streets erupted in screams. Cars collided as drivers panicked, buildings shuddered and cracked, and the ground itself trembled. The demons moved with horrifying speed and intelligence, ripping apart structures and annihilating anyone who stood in their path. Witnesses reported that even high-rise skyscrapers weren't safe. Glass and steel shattered as the creatures advanced, as if the world itself was under siege.
Suzanne, then the plague arrived alongside them. A virus carried on their bodies, or perhaps birthed from their very presence, began infecting the terrified survivors. Those bitten or contaminated turned quickly, flesh decaying, eyes glowing with unnatural light, teeth gnashing. These infected were fast, feral, and relentless, spreading terror faster than the demons themselves. Humanity was caught between two nightmares, the monsters from the rift, and the virus consuming its own children.
James, governments collapsed almost immediately. Emergency protocols failed under the weight of simultaneous destruction in every city. Communication lines were severed, military units overwhelmed, and leadership dissolved into panic. Police, soldiers, and first responders became casualties within hours. In some regions, entire city blocks vanished beneath the monster's assault. Survivors were left to navigate the chaos alone, facing a world in which law, order, and normalcy no longer existed.
Suzanne, the psychological shock was devastating. People froze in fear, unable to process what they were witnessing. Parents abandoned children in desperation, and neighbors turned on one another in panic. Even as some attempted to flee, the streets were clogged with the terrified and the dying. Social media and broadcast systems, where operational, displayed corrupted, glitching images of the invasion. Visions so surreal, they made some question their own sanity. Humanity was witnessing the impossible, and the impossible was winning.
James, beyond the cities, the devastation was just as brutal. Rural communities were not spared. The sky tore open over farmland and forests, bringing destruction that leveled homes and livestock alike. The creatures didn't merely attack, they reshaped the landscape. Rivers overflowed unnaturally. Entire hillsides fractured, and tremors pulsed through the earth. Survivors reported feeling a presence beneath them, as if the very world had awakened in anger, responding to something humanity had done to invite this apocalypse.
Suzanne, the infected continued to emerge in horrifying numbers. Those initially bitten or exposed became rabid, attacking their own families and neighbors. The streets filled with blood and screams as survivors struggled to escape. Hospitals were overrun. Makeshift quarantines failed within hours. The dual threat of demons and infected created chaos too vast for any conventional response. Humanity's initial fight was meaningless, and the cost was already staggering in both lives and infrastructure.
James, early survivors began to organize, instinctively or by necessity. Some barricaded themselves in concrete buildings or underground shelters, while others attempted to flee toward the countryside. Even in these first hours, the seeds of the future world were being sown. Hunters, scavengers, and those with survival instincts would eventually rise as the foundations of new human factions. But in these opening moments, confusion, terror, and grief ruled. Every decision could be life or death.
Suzanne, one chilling aspect of the invasion was its inevitability. The sky didn't just open in one city, It ripped across continents simultaneously. Reports streamed in from multiple time zones, all describing the same impossible events. Rifts tearing reality, demonic creatures pouring forth, infected spreading, and society collapsing. Humanity was under attack on a global scale, and nowhere was safe. This was not a contained catastrophe. It was the dawn of the apocalypse itself.
James, the lesson from these first hours is stark. The world as we knew it is gone. Survivors had to make impossible choices instantly, fight, flee, or hide. Those who survived the initial invasion would do so only through cunning, courage, and ruthless adaptation. The creatures had arrived, the virus had spread, and humanity was forced to confront a truth it had never imagined. The end of normal life was here, and survival was now the only currency in a world ruled by demons and chaos.
Suzanne, the devastation is now fully visible across every major city. Skyscrapers lie shattered, their skeletal remains jutting into smoke-filled skies. Streets are clogged with abandoned vehicles, fires raging uncontrolled, and debris blocking every path. The demons move with terrifying precision, tearing through both infrastructure and human resistance. Bridges collapse under their massive weight, subways flood, and critical facilities, hospitals, power plants, communication hubs, are obliterated. Humanity's urban landscapes, once symbols of progress, have become tombs and battlegrounds.
James, the infected are relentless. Cities are crawling with fast mutated humans turned rabid by the plague within. These infected attack indiscriminately, spreading the virus further while adding chaos to the demon assault. Survivors describe streets filled with screams, and homes where loved ones have already been transformed into unrecognizable monsters. Entire neighborhoods are lost, as barricades fail and panic drives people into streets swarming with both demons and the infected. Civilization itself is unraveling in real time.
Susan, beyond the physical destruction, communication systems are failing everywhere. Mobile networks are down, radio transmissions are distorted, and social media only spreads corrupted, glitching footage of the destruction. Survivors trying to coordinate or warn others are left isolated, forced to make life or death decisions without accurate information. The chaos is amplified by misinformation. False reports of safe zones or miraculous defenses lead desperate people into traps set by either demons, infected, or opportunistic human predators.
James, even infrastructure designed to withstand disasters has proven inadequate. Dams, power stations, and transportation hubs collapse under strain. Water rises unnaturally in some areas, while other streets are scorched by fire. The creature's presence seems to warp reality itself, pushing the physical limits of human engineering. People who attempt to flee find themselves navigating streets torn apart, bridges missing, and tunnels filled with debris, or worse. Every path of escape is fraught with life-threatening hazards.
Suzanne, survivors report harrowing encounters as the demons hunt with predatory intelligence. They tear through barricades, crush vehicles, and snatch humans effortlessly. Their forms are horrifyingly alien, with claws, tentacles, and eyes that seem to pierce the soul. The infected join the chaos, running in packs, attacking indiscriminately, amplifying the sense of inescapable doom. Even the most prepared or resourceful survivors are forced to make impossible choices between safety and survival, moving constantly to stay one step ahead of both threats.
James, social order has completely broken down. Looting, violence, and mistrust dominate the streets. Human conflict now matches the external horrors as desperate groups fight over food, weapons, and shelter. Paranoia spreads faster than the plague, with neighbors turning against each other. Even in partially intact buildings, survivors are forced to remain silent and hidden, unsure who is friend or foe. Humanity's internal fractures are as dangerous as the demons themselves, further complicating survival.
Suzanne, the visuals coming from cities like London, New York, and Shanghai are apocalyptic. Entire districts engulfed in flames, bodies scattered through streets, and skies blackened with smoke and rift energy. The demons' power is evident not just in the destruction, but in the terror they inspire. Survivors describe hearing the earth itself groaning beneath the weight of these creatures, the very atmosphere vibrating with their presence. It is a full-scale collapse of urban life on a scale previously unimaginable.
James, transportation routes are unusable. Trains derail, highways buckle, and ports are destroyed or blocked by derailed ships and debris. Those attempting to escape face long, treacherous treks through ruined landscapes. The infected and the demons patrol these pathways, leaving almost no safe corridors. Nomads and scavengers risk everything to reach distant safe zones, carrying supplies and vital information between fractured communities. Survival is a constant struggle against both environment and enemy.
Suzanne, electricity is gone in most cities. Darkness covers neighborhoods while fires burn unchecked. Generators fail as fuel runs out, leaving medical facilities, shelters, and communication centers without power. The collapse of modern convenience exposes how dependent humanity was on fragile technology. Now every step is a fight against both the living horrors of the infected and the otherworldly demons hunting from the shadows. Civilization's backbone has been shattered in a matter of hours.
James, to summarize, the world's cities are no longer safe. Destruction is total, survival requires constant movement, and human society has fractured completely. Between the demons' relentless assault, the infected spreading the plague, and human mistrust escalating violence, there are few places left where life can continue unthreatened. Those who survived the first wave of chaos must now prepare for what comes next: the rise of kingdoms, hunters, and the struggle to reclaim some measure of control in a shattered world.
Suzanne, as humanity struggled to survive in the shattered cities, 3 distinct factions began to emerge. Humanity's attempt to organize amidst the apocalypse. The First Kingdom, technologically advanced, salvaged remnants of pre-invasion tech to create fortified strongholds. They used automated defenses, electric traps, and surveillance drones to monitor demon activity. Their society valued planning, innovation, and precision, relying on intellect and machines to protect themselves. Yet even in their technological superiority, the shadows of fear and uncertainty lingered.
James, the Second Kingdom, took a very different approach. Militaristic, disciplined, and addicted to chemical stimulants to maintain constant alertness, they relied on brute force and rigorous training to survive. Soldiers carried high-powered weapons and fought in coordinated squads, yet their reliance on drugs created both strength and instability. Their strongholds were heavily fortified, but paranoia ran deep, and trust within their ranks was fragile. Survival came at the cost of their own humanity as discipline became harsh, often cruel enforcement of loyalty and obedience.
Suzanne, the Third Kingdom, was the most terrifying. Fueled by demon blood, they embraced brutality and dark rituals to enhance their physical and mental abilities. King Frederick, their ruthless leader, ruled with fear and awe, transforming his followers into demon blood-enhanced warriors, capable of feats impossible for ordinary humans. Their cities were horrifying fortresses, decorated with trophies of defeated demons, and their soldiers were both feared and cursed. While deadly effective, this power came at the cost of morality, sanity, and sometimes life itself, as the demon blood slowly corrupted those who wielded it.
James, these kingdoms did not exist in isolation. Territory disputes erupted almost immediately as access to safe zones, food, and resources became critical. Clashes between the factions often left entire districts in flames, compounding the devastation caused by demons and the infected. Even as humanity faced existential threats, internal competition intensified. The struggle for dominance created wastelands so dangerous that they were uninhabitable even for demons, emphasizing the tragic reality that human conflict could be as lethal as the apocalypse itself.
Susan, within the First Kingdom, innovation extended beyond defense. They experimented with using demon-derived materials to create armor and weapons. Bone, scales, and teeth of fallen demons were repurposed, giving their soldiers an edge in combat. Yet every encounter with the creatures reminded them of their mortality. Even with technology and preparation, they were forced to adapt constantly, learning from every attack. Their survival depended on blending human ingenuity with lessons from a world now ruled by demons.
James, the Second Kingdom, relied heavily on sheer combat skill and regimented order. They trained relentlessly to fight both infected and demons, patrolling ruins to eliminate threats or capture resources. The stimulants they used gave them heightened speed and awareness, but also caused hallucinations, addiction, and aggression. Their society became a harsh environment where only the strongest and most loyal could survive. They were feared by other humans as much as by the creatures, a reflection of desperation turned into militarized dominance.
Suzanne, the Third Kingdom's use of demon blood, created some of the most formidable survivors ever seen. Enhanced strength, rapid healing, and unnatural reflexes made them nearly unstoppable in battle. But the blood's corruption was apparent. Some warriors became barely human, driven by rage and hunger, losing themselves to the dark power they wielded. King Frederick's leadership was both awe-inspiring and horrifying, maintaining control through fear, charisma, and the promise of ultimate power to those who embraced the blood fully.
James, despite their differences, the kingdoms shared a common understanding. Survival required adaptation and ruthlessness. They scouted ruins, captured demon parts, and gathered infected survivors for experiments or resources. Territory was marked by fortifications, traps, and wards against both demons and humans. Even temporary truces occurred, often to repel a major demon attack, highlighting the precarious balance between cooperation and competition. Humanity's factions were forced to evolve or die in a world where monsters ruled the night.
Suzanne, the rise of these kingdoms also introduced new social orders. The First Kingdom valued knowledge and intelligence, with survivors assigned tasks based on skill. The Second Kingdom enforced hierarchy and loyalty, punishing failure severely. The Third Kingdom enforced devotion to King Frederick and obedience to the corrupting power of demon blood. Each system reflected human adaptation to apocalypse, but also human flaws magnified under pressure. Greed, fear, ambition, and cruelty became as dangerous as any external threat.
James, to summarize, the kingdoms are humanity's response to annihilation. Each embodies a distinct path: technology, militarism, or brutal demon enhancement. They fight demons, infected, and each other, turning the world into a battleground not just against monsters, but against human nature itself. Survival depends on adaptability, resource control, and sometimes embracing the very corruption the apocalypse brought. The rise of the kingdom sets the stage for the next phase: hunting, scavenging, and confronting both the demonic invaders and the plague within humanity itself.
Suzanne, the discovery of demon blood has become one of humanity's most dangerous tools. Harvested from the fallen creatures, it can heal grievous wounds, restore energy, and even grant heightened strength and speed. Yet every survivor who touches it risks corruption. Prolonged exposure warps the mind, twisting thoughts and emotions, creating violent impulses, and even altering physical form. The blood is both a lifeline and a curse, a paradox that forces survivors to weigh immediate survival against long-term consequences.
James, survivors are using demon blood in a variety of ways. Hunters coat weapons with it to pierce tougher demons. Warriors drink small amounts to enhance combat abilities, and some even inject it directly to recover from injuries almost instantaneously. But the effects are unpredictable. Some become more capable, while others descend into rage and madness, attacking friend and foe alike. Trust fractures quickly as kingdoms and small survivor groups debate who should wield this power and who should be denied access, creating internal conflicts alongside the external threats.
Suzanne, alongside demon blood, the virus known as the plague within continues to spread. Those infected exhibit horrifying mutations, glowing eyes, distorted limbs, and hyper-aggression. They move fast, attacking relentlessly, and the infection spreads through bites, scratches, or contact with bodily fluids. Survivors must navigate streets teeming with these rabid beings, where even a small misstep can be fatal. The virus amplifies chaos and fear, making every city block, every ruined building, a potential death trap.
James, paranoia has become a constant companion for survivors. No one can be trusted completely. Friend or foe may be infected or corrupted by demon blood. Entire communities fracture under suspicion, with small betrayals igniting violent confrontations. Even within the kingdoms, loyalty is tenuous. The Second Kingdom's soldiers, chemically heightened and perpetually on edge, sometimes mistake allies for infected in the heat of battle. The plague within fuels not only physical threats, but also psychological warfare among humans themselves.
Suzanne, the Third Kingdom, demonstrates the dark allure of demon blood most vividly. Followers of King Frederick consume it regularly to maintain monstrous strength. Some warriors are transformed almost beyond recognition, muscles exaggerated, reflexes unnaturally fast, eyes glowing with crimson light. But the price is steep: insanity, aggression, and cannibalistic impulses. Even King Frederick fears the consequences of overuse, but he also understands that in a world of demons and infected, power often outweighs morality.
James, survivors in the First Kingdom attempt controlled, measured use of demon blood, often integrating technology to monitor doses and track corruption. They use the blood strategically in small groups, combining enhanced humans with automated defenses. Yet even with these precautions, mistakes occur, and some soldiers succumb to the addictive and corrupting influence. It becomes clear that while demon blood offers a chance at survival, humanity's frailty makes its use inherently dangerous, demanding discipline, wisdom, and restraint.
Suzanne, the plague within, is mutating unpredictably. Some infected develop secondary mutations, becoming faster, stronger, or more resilient to attacks. Others exhibit strange intelligence, working in small groups to ambush survivors. Hunters report encounters where infected seem to anticipate strategies, forcing constant adaptation. Demon blood can help resist infection, but it cannot fully prevent transformation. Survival becomes a delicate balance of power, knowledge, and timing, where a single misstep can mean death or corruption.
James, mistrust between survivors has intensified as the plague spreads. Communities isolate themselves, avoiding strangers, and kingdoms enforce extreme measures to prevent internal outbreaks. The Second Kingdom relies on chemical surveillance and brutal punishment for suspected infected, while the First Kingdom employs monitoring and containment protocols. The Third Kingdom, fueled by demon blood, often sacrifices members to maintain overall strength. Humanity's internal struggle is now as deadly as any demonic attack, threatening to undo survival from within.
Susan, some survivors have attempted to harness demon blood for healing without fully succumbing to corruption, creating temporary champions capable of incredible feats. But these efforts are unstable. Enhanced survivors often become unpredictable in battle, sometimes turning on allies when their minds are overwhelmed. Communities must carefully weigh the benefits and risks, constantly balancing immediate survival against the danger of creating their own monsters. Every drop of demon blood is a gamble, power entwined with peril.
James, to summarize, demon blood and the plague within have reshaped survival. They are both tools and threats, offering strength while threatening sanity, morality, and life itself. Paranoia, internal conflicts, and mutation make every decision a high-stakes gamble. Survivors must learn to wield power without succumbing to corruption, fight the infected without losing themselves, and navigate a world where every human choice can mean life or death. The apocalypse is no longer just external. It is now inside each of us.
Suzanne, amid the chaos of demons, infected, and fractured kingdoms, new types of survivors have emerged: hunters and nomads. Hunters are the first line of defense, moving aggressively to eliminate threats using weapons crafted from demon bones and armor forged from their hides. They are skilled, resourceful, and relentless, often working in small, tight-knit squads to track demons or infected through ruined cities and wastelands. Their survival depends on knowledge of the enemy and sheer courage, as every encounter carries a high risk of death.
James, the Nomads are a different breed. They traverse the wastelands, scavenging abandoned cities, trading supplies, and gathering vital intelligence. Nomads avoid permanent settlements, moving constantly to avoid both demons and the infected. They've learned to read the landscape, identify danger zones, and barter with both kingdoms and independent survivor groups. Their existence is precarious, dependent on stealth, speed, and cunning, yet they often become the unsung lifeline of humanity, connecting fractured communities and bringing crucial resources where they are needed most.
Susan, hunters rely on the remains of fallen demons to craft powerful tools of survival. Bones become spears and blades, claws serve as weapon enhancements, and hides are transformed into protective armor. Each item is not just a tool, but a symbol of triumph over the monstrous threat. However, handling demon parts comes with risk. Blood and tissue are highly toxic and can corrupt or infect the unwary. Hunters must balance aggression with caution, knowing that the very materials that make them strong can also destroy them.
James, the barter economy has become central to survival. Demon parts, collected by hunters or scavenged from battlefields, are used as currency for food, weapons, or safe passage. Even infected limbs or blood may hold value for experimental uses or defensive measures. This grim trade forces survivors to interact in a dangerous world where trust is scarce and greed can be fatal. Bartering has replaced conventional money, making survival dependent on both skill and negotiation, as every interaction could lead to opportunity or death.
Susan, kingdoms are also incorporating hunters and nomads into their systems, often as scouts or frontline warriors. The First Kingdom uses hunters to gather intelligence and demon materials for technology enhancement. The Second Kingdom employs nomads as scouts to lead strike teams or supply chains. The Third Kingdom, obsessed with demon blood, integrates both hunters and nomads to expand their power. The human factions are learning quickly that cooperation with these independent actors can mean the difference between dominance and annihilation.
James' survival strategies extend beyond combat. Shelters are fortified with traps, walls, and wards against demons. Communities ration supplies, establish safe zones, and coordinate patrols. Even the nomads carry protective charms or improvised defenses, sometimes derived from mystical knowledge, demon artifacts, or simple ingenuity. Life has become a constant calculation of risk, as every movement through the wastelands could encounter enemies, infected, or natural hazards left in the wake of destruction.
Suzanne, the hunter's knowledge of the plague within is equally vital. They identify infected, understand transmission risks, and sometimes even use demon blood strategically to resist infection. Hunter squads often act as mobile response units, clearing infestations or rescuing survivors trapped in cities or villages overrun by mutated creatures. Their work is perilous, demanding both physical skill and mental fortitude, as mistakes are fatal and resources limited.
James, the Nomads serve as messengers of survival knowledge. They teach others how to forage safely, avoid infected zones, and understand the unpredictable behavior of demons. Some Nomads carry journals, maps, or recordings of battle outcomes, preserving the wisdom of survival for scattered communities. Without them, knowledge would decay quickly, and new survivors would have to relearn the same deadly lessons. In this world, information is as vital as weapons or armor.
Susan, yet even hunters and nomads face moral dilemmas. They must choose between risking their lives to save others or prioritizing self-preservation. The use of demon blood adds further complication, offering immense power at the cost of potential corruption. Trust, ethics, and humanity are constantly tested. Each encounter, whether with a demon, the infected, or another survivor, becomes a question not just of survival, but of who they are willing to become to endure this apocalypse.
James, to summarize, hunters and nomads are humanity's adaptive response to the apocalypse, representing courage, ingenuity, and resilience. They navigate the wastelands, fight monsters, gather resources, and preserve vital knowledge. Yet their survival is precarious, dependent on skill, luck, and the careful use of power. As the kingdoms consolidate, the hunters and nomads will continue to shape the future of humanity, proving that even in the darkest times, adaptation and courage can carve out fragile hope in a world dominated by demons and plague.
Suzanne, just when humanity thought the worst had been the demons and the infected, a new horror emerged: the Zyrrakel. Born from a twisted fusion of necromancy and demonology, this being was more than a monster. It was a force of pure corruption and death. Witnesses describe a towering figure cloaked in darkness, eyes glowing with an unholy light, and a presence that warps the very air around it. Its appearance signaled the arrival of an enemy that humanity could neither fight nor fully comprehend.
James, the Zyrrakel's influence spreads rapidly. Entire groups of survivors are corrupted merely by proximity, some rising again as undead thralls under its command. Cities fall silent except for the moans of the dead while the living must flee or hide. Its army of necrotic warriors moves with terrifying coordination, sweeping through settlements that were barely recovering from demon attacks. The balance of power in this shattered world has shifted, and even the kingdoms are forced to reconsider their strategies in the face of this unprecedented threat.
Suzanne, the Zyrrakel's abilities are unlike anything humanity has faced. It can animate the dead, corrupt the living, and bend them to its will. Survivors report that even the infected, previously a devastating threat, behave differently near its presence, frenzied, hyper-aggressive, almost intelligent in their attacks. The creature seems to anticipate human tactics, adapting quickly to ambushes and fortifications. It is not just a physical menace, but a strategic predator, challenging the kingdom's greatest minds and warriors alike.
James, the kingdoms were forced into uneasy alliances to counter this new force. The First Kingdom shares technological surveillance and demon-derived weaponry. The Second Kingdom contributes disciplined soldiers trained in direct combat and siege warfare. The Third Kingdom offers the most dangerous asset: demon blood-enhanced warriors capable of confronting undead thralls directly. Yet these alliances are fragile, built on necessity rather than trust, and every coordinated attack risks betrayal, misunderstanding, or catastrophic failure.
Susan, encounters with the Zyrrakel leave survivors traumatized. Some describe hearing whispers that twist thoughts, seeing visions of past failures, or feeling their own strength sapped by its presence. Its aura alone is corruptive, a psychological weapon that amplifies fear, mistrust, and despair. Communities that once relied on cohesion crumble under paranoia, while hunters and nomads struggle to mount effective counterattacks. Humanity's survival is now a test of both courage and mental resilience.
James, the undead armies under the Zyrrakel are vast and terrifyingly organized. Thralls maintain formations, guard key positions, and even coordinate attacks with surprising efficiency. Entire districts can fall in hours, leaving survivors scrambling for refuge. The presence of this force demonstrates that the apocalypse has evolved. Humanity no longer faces merely rampaging monsters or infected hordes, but a calculating intelligence capable of long-term strategy and manipulation of life and death itself.
Suzanne, as the Zyrrakel consolidates power, its objectives remain unclear, yet its methods are devastatingly effective. Towns are eradicated, resources plundered, and both humans and demons are sometimes subjugated into its army. Witnesses report horrific experiments combining demon blood and necrotic magic to create monstrous hybrids, merging the worst traits of all threats humanity has faced. The stakes have escalated far beyond survival, Now the fight is for the very possibility of future civilization.
James, kingdoms are reacting by consolidating resources and fortifying strategic positions. Hunters and nomads are mobilized as scouts and shock troops. But even with demon blood-enhanced warriors, direct confrontation with the Zyrrakel is perilous. Every engagement carries massive risk, and many who attempt to strike first are annihilated. Intelligence, timing, and preparation are crucial, yet the unpredictability of both the Zyrrakel and its undead army makes every plan a gamble with human lives as the stakes.
Suzanne, in response to this unprecedented threat, survivors are also experimenting with forbidden knowledge. Some attempt counter-necromancy, mystical wards, or demon-based explosives to slow the Zyrrakel's advance. Others create mobile safe zones, constantly relocating to avoid detection. Every action is a combination of ingenuity, desperation, and courage. Humanity's ingenuity is now tested like never before, as each choice could mean the survival of dozens, or the annihilation of entire groups.
James, to summarize, the emergence of the Zyrrakel changes everything. No longer is humanity fighting isolated monsters or the plague within. The undead armies, corrupted thralls, and terrifying intelligence of this necrotic overlord force survivors and kingdoms alike to rethink strategy, adapt rapidly, and confront the psychological and physical horror of true evil. The apocalypse has reached a new apex, and humanity's fight is now against a being that embodies death, corruption, and the consequences of tampering with powers beyond comprehension.
Suzanne, the kingdom's fragile alliances began to shatter under the strain of survival, power, and territorial disputes. While the Zyrrakel spread its influence, battles erupted between the first, second, and third kingdoms over remaining safe zones and resources. Cities and wastelands became battlefields, with scorched ruins and shattered fortifications marking the cost of each conflict. The apocalypse had already claimed countless lives, but now humanity itself became a deadly opponent to other humans, adding a tragic layer to the ongoing horror.
James, these wars were brutal and chaotic. The First Kingdom's technological superiority allowed them to deploy drones, automated traps, and remote defenses, but the Second Kingdom's disciplined soldiers often exploited their over-reliance on machinery, sabotaging key systems and overwhelming weak points. The Third Kingdom, enhanced with demon blood, acted unpredictably, their attacks devastating but sometimes uncontrollable. Cities and settlements were burned to the ground, strategic strongholds lost, and survivors forced to flee amidst fire, smoke, and the cries of the dying.
Suzanne, wastelands grew ever more dangerous. Where once survivors could navigate ruins to scavenge or establish camps, now they faced open destruction zones filled with demon hordes, infected packs, and armed human factions. Bridges were toppled, tunnels collapsed, and supply lines severed. Even attempts to reclaim or fortify a city often ended in disaster, as hidden infected, demon ambushes, or human treachery obliterated progress. Humanity's internal conflict amplified the chaos, making every survival effort a gamble with immense consequences.
James, betrayal became commonplace. Scavenger groups were attacked by their own allies, supply caches stolen, and fortifications overrun by insiders who switched sides for personal gain. In some cases, kingdoms sacrificed entire squads to lure enemies or monsters into traps, highlighting the extreme cost of survival and strategy in this new world. The line between friend and foe blurred, as paranoia, desperation, and ambition drove humans to act in ways that worsened their collective plight.
Suzanne, casualties mounted with terrifying speed. Entire hunting parties, nomadic convoys, and kingdom strike teams were wiped out in a single ambush. The infected and demon hordes exploited every weakness, while human forces often miscalculated their own capabilities. Streets ran red with blood, and ruins became cemeteries for the ambitious and unprepared. Survival was no longer about fighting monsters alone. It was about navigating a deadly maze of threats where one wrong move could mean annihilation.
James, internal conflict among humans created additional crises. Kingdom rivalries escalated into open warfare even as external threats loomed. Resources were hoarded or destroyed to deny access to rivals, and mistrust fractured temporary alliances meant to repel the Zyrrakel or demon attacks. Entire settlements crumbled not because of monsters, but due to human infighting, illustrating a grim reality. Humanity's own flaws were accelerating the apocalypse, turning potential havens into death traps.
Suzanne, the psychological toll was staggering. Survivors were forced to witness friends and allies die, sometimes at their own hands, as survival required impossible choices. The corrupted, infected, and demon-blooded warriors added layers of unpredictability, making even planned operations catastrophic. Communities fractured under pressure, leaving only the strongest, smartest, or luckiest alive. Human ambition, fear, and aggression became as lethal as the demons themselves.
James, infrastructure collapse compounded the struggle. Cities, supply depots, and safe zones were obliterated, cutting off essential resources. Roads and bridges were unusable, and communication systems failed entirely. Any attempt to coordinate attacks or evacuate survivors often ended in chaos, as both monsters and humans exploited every weakness. Even fortified bastions could not withstand combined threats, leaving survivors trapped between death from monsters and betrayal from their own kind.
Suzanne, the cost of survival escalated to horrifying levels. Even when humans won battles, they paid dearly. Small victories often meant weeks of casualties, destroyed supplies, and weakened defenses. Kingdoms lost leaders, hunters, and nomads essential for reconnaissance and combat. Morale plummeted, and desperation drove decisions that compounded the apocalypse rather than alleviating it. Humanity's struggle against external threats became inseparable from its struggle against itself.
James, to summarize, war and collapse have become defining features of the apocalypse. Kingdoms battle each other and the demons, wastelands are littered with corpses, and strategic failures claim more lives than the monsters themselves. Betrayal, paranoia, and mistrust amplify the devastation, making survival a complex balance of skill, cunning, and sheer luck. Humanity's internal conflict now fuels the apocalypse, ensuring that the fight for survival is as much against ourselves as it is against any external threat.
Suzanne, even in the midst of chaos, humanity finds ways to endure. Survivors are learning to adapt, creating hidden shelters, fortified camps, and underground refuges away from demons, infected and warring kingdoms. Makeshift barricades, traps, and observation posts help protect what remains of life. People are becoming adept at moving silently, scavenging efficiently, and recognizing danger signs before it's too late. Each day is a struggle, but adaptation has become essential to survival.
James, communities are forming small networks of cooperation. Hunters share demon knowledge, nomads relay information, and survivors pool resources to create sustainable safe zones. Even temporary alliances across kingdoms emerge when the threat of the Zyrrakel or massive demon hordes approaches. These cooperative groups highlight a glimmer of humanity's resilience, proving that survival is possible through strategy, shared knowledge, and trust, even if that trust is fragile and always tested.
Suzanne, innovation is thriving in desperate ways. Survivors use demon parts not only for combat, but for essential tools and infrastructure. Bones reinforced into structural supports, hides fashioned into protective clothing, and even blood used to power limited devices in experimental technology. Communities improvise with what remains, turning ruins into defensible strongholds. In this post-apocalyptic world, creativity and ingenuity are as important as brute strength or magical enhancements.
James, adaptation extends to psychological resilience as well. Survivors develop rituals, communication codes, and routines to maintain some stability amid constant danger. Mental toughness becomes a weapon, as panic can be fatal when demons, infected, or rival humans strike without warning. Communities foster morale, keep records, and train members to handle both combat and the corruption inherent in demon blood. Survival is not just physical, it requires maintaining identity, humanity, and sanity.
Suzanne. Some survivors specialize in reconnaissance and intelligence. Nomads and hunters map the wastelands, mark safe passages, and track demon and undead movements. This knowledge allows small groups to avoid ambushes and plan raids for supplies. Even the kingdoms increasingly rely on these scouts to anticipate threats. In a world dominated by chaos, information is as crucial as weapons or shelter, and those who control knowledge often control life itself.
James, survivor groups are also learning to manage demon blood carefully. Measured doses heal, strengthen, and even enhance cognition without total corruption. Communities establish rules for usage, assigning trained individuals to dispense it only when necessary. These protocols prevent widespread madness and maintain a functional defense force capable of resisting demons, infected, and rogue human factions. Discipline in the use of such power has become a cornerstone of adaptation.
Susan, for some, survival is about mobility. Nomads keep moving, avoiding large battles and relying on stealth and speed to live another day. They connect isolated communities, deliver critical resources, and observe kingdom movements. While dangerous, this approach allows small groups to persist where stationary communities might be annihilated. Constant vigilance and adaptability are the defining traits of these wanderers.
James, hunters continue to serve as both warriors and mentors. They teach combat techniques, tracking skills, and ways to exploit demon weaknesses. Their experience turns novices into capable fighters, capable of defending their communities or retrieving essential resources. Even against overwhelming odds, the spread of practical knowledge ensures that humanity is not entirely helpless, and that the next generation of survivors has a chance to resist annihilation.
Suzanne, survival also requires moral judgment and compromise. Communities must decide who is allowed to join, how resources are shared, and when to risk confrontation versus flight. Every decision carries life or death consequences, and the plague within, the infected, and the demons are constant reminders of the stakes. Humanity's resilience is not measured solely in combat, but in the ability to maintain cohesion, ethics, and rationality in a world designed to destroy both body and soul. Suzanne, after years of devastation, humanity faces the consequences of its own choices. The kingdom's internal conflicts, greed, and misuse of demon blood accelerated the apocalypse, weakening defenses and creating wastelands. Survivors now witness the ecological and societal collapse firsthand. Forests burned, cities reduced to rubble, and once livable lands rendered toxic. The demons and infected exploit these failures, and the Zyrrakel thrives amid chaos, highlighting that humanity's mistakes have compounded the danger from beyond.
James, even now, the threat of demons and infected is far from over. While some creatures were slain or contained, their numbers remain staggering, and the virus continues to mutate. Every ruined city, every wasteland harbors danger, forcing survivors to remain vigilant. The Zyrrakel's presence looms like a shadow over all efforts, its undead armies ready to strike or corrupt the living. Humanity is no longer just fighting monsters. It is fighting a world made lethal by its own errors and the consequences of tampering with forces it cannot control.
Suzanne, the lessons are harsh but clear. Unity is essential, even among factions and kingdoms that were once bitter enemies. Cooperation allows survivors to pool knowledge, share resources, and resist the combined threats of demons, infected, and the Zyrrakel. Survival requires recognizing the limits of power, the dangers of greed, and the cost of corruption, especially when wielding demon blood. Those who ignore these lessons risk repeating history, falling prey to both external threats and internal corruption.
James, adaptation remains humanity's strongest tool. Survivors must continue refining strategies, establishing safe zones, and teaching critical skills to new generations. Innovation, careful use of demon-derived tools, and disciplined combat techniques provide a fighting chance. Yet the mental and moral aspects of survival are equally vital. Paranoia, mistrust, and succumbing to the corrupting influence of power can undo even the best prepared communities. Humanity's resilience depends on balance, strength guided by ethics and wisdom.
Suzanne, the Zyrrakel, reminds us that not all threats can be confronted directly. Its intelligence, adaptability, and undead armies make it nearly unstoppable in open combat. Instead, strategy, deception, and preparation are necessary. Communities must learn when to engage, when to hide, and when to move. The apocalypse has taught that survival is not only measured by brute force, but by foresight, patience, and the ability to remain calm when everything is falling apart.
James, the remaining demons also demand caution. They are unpredictable, adaptive, and in some cases attracted to the corruption of demon blood. Hunters and kingdoms must balance aggression with prudence, choosing battles carefully and respecting the limits of their own power. Overconfidence or misuse of resources can turn a tactical victory into catastrophic loss, reinforcing the lesson that survival is as much about restraint as it is about courage.
Susan, morality has become a weapon in itself. Communities that maintain discipline, fairness, and ethical boundaries tend to survive longer. Exploitation, betrayal, and uncontrolled ambition, on the other hand, accelerate collapse. Even in a world ruled by horror, the choices survivors make shape outcomes. Who lives, who dies, and what fragments of humanity remain. Power without ethics is a double-edged sword, capable of protecting but also destroying its wielder.
James, the ecological consequences cannot be ignored. Humanity's interference with nature, compounded by demon blood experiments and necromantic practices, has awakened forces far beyond comprehension. The world is no longer a passive environment. It reacts, pushes back, and reshapes itself through monsters, mutation, and devastation. Awareness of this reality is critical for any long-term strategy. Survival is not just human-centric. It requires understanding and respecting forces that extend beyond human control.
Suzanne, to survive this apocalypse, humanity must unite while remaining vigilant against the darkness within. Demon blood, power, and ambition offer tools for survival, but if misused, they corrupt and destroy. Communities must enforce discipline, share knowledge, and resist the psychological and moral decay that accompanies chaos. The fight is no longer simply against external monsters. It is a battle for humanity itself, against fear, temptation, and internal corruption.
James, to summarize, the dire outlook is a call to awareness, caution, and unity. Survivors must learn from past mistakes, maintain morality amid horror, and adapt continually to ever-present threats from demons, infected, and the Zyrrakel. Survival depends on cooperation, discipline, courage, and ethical restraint. The apocalypse is far from over, but humanity's ability to endure and retain its essence will determine whether life continues or fades into darkness forever.